Mark Carney says he's boosting defense spending, $8 billion more for Canada's military. But here's the catch. Half of that increase, about $4.2 billion, is being flushed down the drain on climate vanity projects. Not weapons, not gear, not housing or retention, just woke climate reparations paid in carbon credits and solar panels. And we have the documents to prove it.
In those circumstances, from Vimy to Juno, that the world came to know the value of our strength. But now we're working alongside the European Union to combat climate change, to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, and to protect, amongst other things, academic and scientific freedoms. In these ways, the world knows the strength of our values.
Is it still your expectation that NATO countries spend 5% of their GDP on defense spending?
I think they should do that. I don't think we should, but I think they should. We've been supporting NATO so long. In many cases, I believe paying almost 100% the cost. So I don't think we should, but I think that the NATO countries should, absolutely. You know who else was a low payer, just about the lowest? A place called Canada. Because Canada said, why should we pay when the United States will protect us free? They've been right about that.
Documents we obtained through access to information research funded by your donations at rebelinvestigates.com expose the truth. The Department of National Defense is sinking $4.27 billion into decarbonizing the military. That's nearly half of the new defense spending that Prime Minister Mark Carney announced. And the cost per ton of CO2 reduced? A laughable, wasteful $472, whatever that means. But that's more than double what even Trudeau's carbon tax justified. This isn't defense spending. It's eco-extortion. And while the Department of National Defense dumps billions into fighting the weather, soldiers are struggling to fight it all. In Latvia, Canadian troops are deployed as part of NATO's deterrence force. But they're buying their own helmets and tactical vests. Why? Because the ones they're issued are decades old and don't meet modern battlefield standards. The standard CG-634 helmet, it was cutting edge in 1997. Today, it's practically a souvenir, but the government has money for carbon audits. As if that wasn't insulting enough, the military has also implemented a federal policy mandating tampon dispensers in the men's washrooms on military bases. Soldiers who protested or even removed the embarrassing dispensers were threatened with discipline. Some units even floated the idea of launching hate crime investigations over it. So, no money for ear protection, no housing, but rest assured, if you need a pad in the men's stall on a forward operating base, they got you covered.
Our military infrastructure and equipment have aged, hindering our military preparedness. We recognize that only one of our 4 submarines is seaworthy, that less than half our maritime fleet and land vehicles are operational.
On August 8th, Prime Minister Mark Carney announced that he would be giving all members of the Canadian Armed Forces a pay raise. The pay raise amounts to roughly an additional $2 billion in spending. Now, it is a welcome hike in pay. However, it's still half of what the Liberals are spending to combat climate change in the armed forces. Now, here's the real crisis: retention. Last year alone, 5,000 members quit the Canadian Armed Forces. That's a historic drain of trained, experienced personnel walking away in frustration. Look at this. The highest attrition rates within the Canadian Armed Forces are observed amongst its lowest ranks and newest members, said a report which pointed to the 2023-2024 fiscal year where 9.4% of newly enrolled members quit, as opposed to 4.3% average across all of the Canadian Armed Forces. The reason new members are quitting? Training delays and difficulty adjusting to military life. And what did the government do? Well, they shut down the retention program office. Gone, axed. So let's summarize. The military can't retain its own people, and they don't seem interested in retaining them, in fact. They can't properly equip the ones who stay, but it can hire climate consultants and install tampon dispensers in the men's room. That's your liberal defense strategy. Carney claims we'll hit NATO's 2% target by 2026, but what good is all that if half the spending bump is climate fluff?
The question is, as we move towards later in this decade, and depending on how the threat environment evolves globally, if we are moving to the higher and higher levels of defense spending because that's necessary, then we will have to make considerations about what less the federal government can do in certain cases and how we're going to pay for it.
President Donald Trump has already made it clear. He wants real capability, not carbon offsets. And when he looks at Canada's books and sees billions going to environmental theater, not tanks or troops, he won't see an ally. He'll see a joke. This isn't serious policy. It's an international embarrassment dressed up as progress, and our brave fighting men and women are the butt of the joke. The Canadian military has become a case study in what happens when woke ideology infects national defense. Tampons in the men's room, climate change as the enemy, soldiers crowdfunding their own gear. This isn't a fighting force anymore. It's a DEI department with camouflage. For Rebel News, I'm Sheila Gunn-Reid. If you want more real investigations just like this, if you want the truth about how the Liberals are hollowing out our military, support the work that we do at rebelinvestigates.com. We got these documents, we're sounding the alarm, but we need your help to keep digging. Again, that's rebelinvestigates.com.